My dad f***ed my girlfriend, so I f***ed his new wife. I, 34M, have never had a close relationship with my father, 57M. To give you some background, my mom passed away when I was just 7 years old. After that, my dad took care of me, and we were quite close. He never dated anyone, as he didn't want me to have a stepmother. When I turned 18, I started encouraging him to date. He was handsome and often attracted attention from women, so I thought it would be good for him. But he remained single, I guess because he was just used to it. When I was 19, I began dating a girl named Laura, 33F now. She was sweet, beautiful, and smart. I fell for her almost instantly. I knew she was a bit materialistic, but I ignored that flaw. People can be materialistic, it's human nature. I always pictured us getting married and having kids one day. We dated for 6 years until tragedy struck. Her father died in a car accident. With her mother living in another state, she had no one, so she moved in with my dad and me. After that, she quit her job because of a mental breakdown. My dad was kind enough to let her stay with us. I began to notice that my father and Laura were getting closer. I thought it was just him supporting her during her tough time, but things began to change. Laura claimed she had a new job and was busy, often coming home late at night. I sometimes caught a whiff of cologne on her, but I gave her the benefit of the doubt. She became secretive about her phone, and my dad and Laura often gossiped and ignored me. Eventually, I confronted my dad about my suspicions. He brushed them off, insisting I was just imagining things. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. When Laura was asleep, I took her phone and unlocked it with her thumbprint. What I found shattered me. There were thousands of messages between her and my father, filled with flirting and sexting. To my horror, there was even a video of her performing oral sex on him. I wanted to scream and confront them, maybe even do something drastic, but I held back. I couldn't believe my own dad would betray me like this, especially after he had recently helped me shop for a diamond ring. I took time off work and confided in my friend, Jake. Together, we came up with a plan to expose both of them. For weeks, I pretended everything was fine. I decided to quietly exit their lives instead of creating a scene. I secured a job in a different town, packed my essentials, sold the ring, rented a car, and changed my phone number. I created an email filled with screenshots of their affair and sent it to our friends, making sure they knew what kind of people they really were. I deleted my social media accounts and cut contact with everyone, except Jake, whom I instructed not to give me any updates. The days that followed were tough. I had nightmares about Laura and my dad laughing at my foolishness. I felt an overwhelming urge to call my dad and yell at him, but I knew he would offer some pathetic excuse. I spiraled into a deep depression, even contemplating self-harm. Years of therapy helped, but I never truly recovered. I never fell in love again, though I remained curious about my father's life, knowing it would just reopen old wounds. Fate had other plans for me. One night, while celebrating a promotion at a bar, I met a stunning woman named Sarah, 38F. She had a captivating presence, and we hit it off instantly. I hadn't dated in a long time, but I had an incredible time with her that night. We exchanged numbers and soon started dating. While watching a movie one evening, I saw a message pop up on my phone that made my heart drop. It was a photo of my father embracing the woman I was seeing. Shocked, I needed to know more, so I reached out to Jake. He was excited to hear from me, but I wasted no time asking about what had happened after I left. According to Jake, after I exposed their affair, both Laura and my dad became social pariahs. Laura lost many friends, and one night at a party, her best friend slapped her after thinking her father had been unfaithful. My dad, once well-respected in the community, saw all his friends abandon him. Laura and my dad attempted to work things out, but they fought constantly, with my dad blaming her for my departure. Eventually, Laura left town to stay with her mother, and soon after, my dad left too, unable to handle the backlash. He remarried a few years later, tying the knot with Sarah. I couldn't shake the feeling of disgust at having slept with a married woman, but a part of me thought it was the perfect revenge on my father for his betrayal almost a decade ago. I was left wondering whether I should confront her about the past or simply continue our relationship as it is. Now on to the next story, story 2. My dad wants me to apologize to his girlfriend's children for pointing out their racist comments about me. When I was 23 and my sister was 20, our parents finally split up. They were such a mismatched pair that it surprised no one when they parted ways. And honestly, both my sister and I felt a sense of relief. Everyone seemed happier immediately, and since then, both of our parents have moved on and found new partners. My relationship with my dad, 56 male, has always been a good one, though it's a bit strained at times. He can be pretty old-fashioned, and his views are often less sensitive than mine. He throws around phrases like, "that's so gay" for things he doesn't like, uses slurs, and even jokes about politics in ways that make me cringe, like saying a female president would be too emotional to handle power. He's essentially the stereotype of an out-of-touch white guy in his late 50s. I love him, but there's no changing his ways, so I usually just bear it when we're together. At least he has the sense not to make these kinds of remarks in public. He keeps them to family conversations. Recently, Dad started seeing a woman named Laura. Laura has 2 grown kids. Her son is 29, and her daughter is 27. I only met Laura briefly earlier this year, when I stopped by my dad's place to drop off some things. My sister hasn't met her at all, and neither of us had met her kids. Dad seems really into Laura and wanted us all to get to know each other, hoping we'd blend together as a family, despite his own questionable views on certain things. So, Dad invited us all to dinner. Knowing my sister can be a little prickly around strangers, I asked her to keep things friendly because I didn't want to mess things up for Dad. We went to a Mexican restaurant, which is our family's favorite type of food. Our mom is Mexican, and growing up, we were spoiled with her incredible, authentic dishes. Ever since the divorce, Dad has been trying to fill that void with restaurant food, so he's always on the lookout for a good taqueria. Also worth noting, although my sister and I are half Mexican, we both have light skin, and people often mistake us for being fully European. As soon as we sat down with Laura and her kids, her son and daughter started complaining about the menu. These were grown adults griping that half the menu was in Spanish, even though every dish also had its English name right next to it, along with descriptions in English. My sister and I, who are nearly fluent in Spanish and are studying to become ESL teachers, felt the tension rising but tried to brush it off. Things stayed civil until the waiter came over to take our drink orders. Laura's son snapped his fingers to get the waiter's attention, treating him like a servant, while her daughter spoke in an exaggeratedly slow and patronizing tone, as if this man couldn't possibly understand English. I felt embarrassed for them, but the waiter handled it all with kindness and professionalism. When he left, Laura's son immediately began complaining, saying he didn't expect much from the service and doubting the waiter could even understand them. Dad, trying to smooth things over, reassured him that the service was great and even suggested a dish. But then Laura's son muttered something about the waiter probably being an illegal and that people here need to learn English if they want to live in America. My sister and I are generally calm and kind people, but we aren't known for our patience in the face of ignorance. Without saying a word, we both shifted into speaking rapid Spanish to each other for the rest of dinner. We made sure to switch to English whenever we addressed Laura, but otherwise, we kept the conversation between us and Dad strictly in Spanish. And at every chance, my sister slipped in references to our Mexican heritage and the Hispanic household we grew up in with our mom. Laura looked mortified, but honestly, it felt satisfying to push back against her kid's attitude. Since that night, Dad has been blowing up my phone, asking, no, begging, me to apologize to Laura's kids for embarrassing them. He insists they didn't mean anything that bad and accuses us of overreacting. I'm pretty sure he didn't anticipate their behavior, or else he wouldn't have chosen a Mexican restaurant for the dinner. But to him, saying racist stuff wasn't that serious. He went so far as to say we humiliated them, and even Laura. I do feel bad for Laura. She was nothing but pleasant. I'm more than willing to apologize to her for acting petty and immature, but I can't bring myself to apologize to her kids for standing up against their ignorance. So here I am, torn. Am I just being stubborn about this? I don't want to disappoint Dad, but he's not the best judge when it comes to recognizing racism, and I don't feel I should apologize for not tolerating it. I thought I'd share an update with everyone on how things turned out. After that awkward dinner with my dad's girlfriend Laura and her kids, my sister and I sat down with our mom to talk it over. She has this way of staying calm, even when we're ready to explode. When we told her how we'd switched to speaking only in Spanish that night, she couldn't help but laugh. She said she would have loved to see the look on Laura's kids' faces. But in her calm way, she suggested we apologize anyway, knowing how Dad can hold grudges over little things like this. Neither my sister nor I really wanted to go down that road, but I decided to take a different approach. I reached out to Laura directly and asked if we could meet up for coffee to talk things through. When we met, she seemed genuinely sorry about the whole situation. She explained that a lot of her kids' strong opinions actually come from their dad, who she described as a patriotic Republican. The way she worded it made me feel like she didn't entirely disagree with them. Rather, she just regretted that it came up because my sister and I are part Mexican and happened to be offended. It was just me and Laura at the Starbucks. Since my sister had pretty much lost interest in the whole thing and decided to move on, she's good at letting things go fast. I tried to be diplomatic, mentioning that everyone has the right to their opinions. After all, my dad has plenty I don't agree with. But I told her plainly that it felt disrespectful to assume we'd just accept their remarks, and that it was embarrassing to sit there with people who seemed openly racist. Laura looked a little rattled when I used the word racist, but I stood my ground. At the very least, she understood and apologized again. I apologized for embarrassing her at dinner, and while things were still a bit awkward, I felt like we'd managed to smooth things over somewhat. Now, my dad, on the other hand, is a different story. He's dug his heels in and won't talk to me until I apologize to Laura's kids. I made it clear that I'm not going to do that, and if he thinks it's fine for his kids to face racism, then I'll have to think about whether I want to spend time around him, or if I'd ever feel comfortable bringing any future mixed-race kids around. My sister, true to form, sent him a blunt text saying, "Enjoy hanging out with the racists." She's never been one for subtlety. So, that's where things stand right now. It's not exactly a happy ending, but maybe not a bad one either.